I am focused on forming a government of progressive Canadians, including a strong number of Quebecers who will fight for the investments that Canadians need.
The party that wins the most seats should be able to form the government. And the other convention in modern Canadian politics is that a prime minister who enters into an election and comes out of that election with fewer seats than another party resigns.
We will fight in whatever form the government takes, whatever power the people give us, to make sure we deliver on the things that people need.
The clearest and best result from this election will be if we avoid a false majority for either the Liberals or the Conservatives, to force them to have to listen and to work with some of the parties in the House of Commons.
That's it. E-Day -1. There's the final messages. 5 weeks of furious campaigning. It is still too close to call. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, they're locked in a knife fight in a phone booth. The NDP are gaining ground. But does that translate into seats? Did anyone see the rise of the Bloc Québécois coming? Who could end up holding the balance of power? Lots of questions. Let's bring back the scrum to dig into the latest numbers. Laura Stone is back. Lisa Laflamme is back. Craig Oliver is back. And our special guest this round is CTV pollster, President and CEO of Nanos Research, Nik Nanos. Great to see you, Nick. All right. Where are we right now on the day before?
Minority fever has gripped the nation in the latest Nanos Globe CTV tracking. We have the Conservatives at 32, Liberals at 31, basically locked in a dead heat as of the polling that was completed last night. No one has the upper hand when it comes to the national ballot. So what are you watching?
Go on, forget the national numbers for a second. We know that. They've been frozen in amber. Underneath, what are you watching?
So what I'm watching is a number of things. First of all, preferred Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has a 5-point advantage, which is good news for him. The bad news is that when we look in some of these regional races, like the Bloc is on the rise in Quebec, where they're statistically tied with the Liberals. So that's bad news for Justin Trudeau. The NDP are on the rise in British Columbia. It's a three-way race in British Columbia right now, which means it's an absolute coin toss. And the 905, the Liberals are doing well, but it's still possible for the Conservatives to pick up some of those seats.
Wow. So what I hear you saying basically is that tomorrow night really isn't the end game. This fight is going to go right onto the floor of Parliament over who gets to run a minority government and all those issues we've talked about after the election's over.
Well, we'll see, because of the spread, who's got the plurality by how much will determine how nasty that fight is. Lisa, you watch this campaign, you've interviewed everyone. What's been the biggest surprise, and what are you looking for tomorrow night?
Well, I'll be watching certainly the Bloc. I mean, I think that just popped up out of nowhere. I don't know what it means, whether the separatist movement is alive and well. Certainly the party was dead, and it is not dead any longer. I'll be watching for whether or not this resurgence of the NDP matters. It seems to be completely leader-based. Whether or not it resonates with in the ridings. I'll be watching, I think we're all a little bit stunned after 40 days at how there was not a defining issue. So what are Canadians actually voting for, or are they voting against something? It's very unusual in this country that a government after its first term should possibly go down, but based on Nick's numbers, who knows? And it's exciting that British Columbia, to all those British Columbians out there, you will matter, Yeah. We're going to be on the air till 3 in the morning.
This will be great, and we're never going to go to sleep before that. All right, Laura, what are you watching for?
Look, I think a lot of voters were feeling very undecided and very torn about this race. I did some traveling around the Toronto area. People didn't feel like there were any good choices out there. So I'm interested to see whether the two main parties' messaging, the Liberals and the Conservatives, in these dying days of the campaign, have actually moved voters, in terms of the Conservatives pushing this idea of a Liberal NDP coalition and taxes rising as a result of that, deficits rising. I wonder if that moves anyone to the Conservatives. And the Liberals' messaging of strategic voting, telling progressives that they have to choose the Liberals in order to prevent a Conservative government. So I wonder how much that has impacted voters who weren't feeling so sure.
Was there, Nick, a turning point in this? Sometimes we look at the debates. If you were to look at this campaign, and there's been a lot of issues, was there any key moments, turning points, or are we just still locked away?
Yeah, actually, there was a turning point. The turning point were the big debates, the English and French debates, because those were platforms for Blanchette and Singh in order to move the numbers. So both of those leaders came out of that campaign with their brand kind of much stronger than it was going in, and they were able to pick up support and kind of move the numbers. But beyond that, this campaign has been about none of the above. People have not been happy with either two of the frontrunners. I think for voters, they're going to look at the final choices in terms of risk. Is Justin Trudeau a risky choice as Prime Minister? Is Andrew Scheer a risky choice? Because you know what? Canadians have seen the leaders, they've seen the platforms, they've seen the performance. I think it's going to just basically come down to risk.
So Trudeau, in desperation, has to pull out his Charles de Gaulle strategy, which is après-moi le déluge. If you don't pick me, you're going to get those terrible Tories destroying the country. So vote for me. Don't vote for the NDP. Don't vote for the Greens. Don't split the vote that's progressive.
Isn't it fascinating, though, that the two winners in this tomorrow night might be Singh and Blanchette? I mean, the two party leaders who could never form government or cannot form government.
Does that stuff work, Nick, the fear? So we all know it's pull the old, when in doubt, pull this fire alarm for the Liberal strategic vote. And for Andrew Scheer, it's, oh gosh, here comes the coalition, look out, they're going to be this lefty coalition. Does that stuff work in the polls?
It does work. It's fear and anger work in terms of getting the vote out. And for the Conservatives, they're riding on anger against the Liberals. And for the Liberals, they're riding on anger against or fear against the Conservatives. And it's all about getting out the vote. You know, to Lisa's point, how much of an organization do the NDP have? It's going to be street by street, block by block, riding by riding. And I think we're going to learn on Monday which of the two frontrunners has the best ground game, because that could make the difference.
I think another storyline to watch, too, is what happens here in Ontario and whether the Doug Ford factor does play into the campaign. I mean, the Liberals certainly want it to, and they've been pushing that messaging throughout the campaign, but Doug Ford has been largely silent. You know, is what happened in his first year of government resonating with voters who are thinking about Conservatives, and is it too much of a risky choice to go with a Conservative federal government? And will there be the blame game? Are we going to see a Scheer versus Ford camp fight after this, depending on what happens on Monday?
I think one of the other things to watch, and Lisa, we'll be chronicling this, is this strange obsession with minority governments. I know people interchange the word coalition, which is a much more technical term. It means two parties actually get together
which
and
we've
share.
Never really had for 100 years or something.
So how do you think that's playing out? Because Canadians have experience with minority governments, and they haven't been so bad.
I know. I was going to say, you know, we've all got pretty short memories. I was on those campaigns when we were having election after election after election from 2004 to 2010. So I don't know. It's not a big scary word. It really isn't. We've lived through them before. Sometimes they're actually a good thing. In this case, though, what I found really interesting anecdotally, just from the Canadians I've spoken to, is they are looking at the candidates in their own ridings. They're not voting based on even a party or a leader, but who in their own riding matters or said something that resonated with them. And I always find that's really interesting when people are looking inside their own community.
The leaders, and we're in a leadership world now, may become a liability. Craig?
Well, the big problem the Liberals have, of course, is so much of what their strategy depended on was a collapse of the NDP and picking up a lot of votes in Quebec. None of that's happening for them, and that has to be what their biggest problem is tomorrow night.
All right, I'm not going to put these guys on the spot, but I can put you on the spot. Sure. All right, what are we going to see tomorrow night? Like, where are we now? I know subject to change and asterisks and a silo full of salt, but where are we now?
Well, you know, it's a dead heat in terms of the popular support, but when you crunch out the distribution, the Liberals have an advantage in terms of the number of seats that they can win, but they're short of a majority today. So the Conservatives, they have these massive advantages in the West, 20, 30 points. It's just wasted votes when it comes to converting to seats.
Yeah, there you go, vote efficiency. All right, as Lisa says, get your coffee. This is going to be unbelievable.
Wine tomorrow night.
Wine, anything. Put whatever you want in your cup.
Water.
Craig, Laura, Lisa, and Nick, thanks all of you for watching. Lisa, Nick, Craig, and I will be back here tomorrow night for CTV's big election night special, anchored, of course, by the great Lisa Laflamme. Our coverage of election 2019 starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, online, and on all of our CTV channels. We will bring you the stories, the results, and the perspectives you need to know, and we will all see you back at question period in 7 days, but hang on, we'll see you back tomorrow night.